Hello. So today we're going to begin to plan our own narrative poems. We're going to summarise the story that we're going to write our poem about. We're going to list some descriptive words and phrases, and we're going to draft our starting stanzas. And the picture there is Beowulf fighting the dragon, which is what you're going to be writing your poems all about. First of all, we're going to listen, or I'd like you to listen again, to the fight between Beowulf and the dragon. Make a note of any descriptive language you might like to magpie for your poem. This is quite a long video because it's quite a long fight. But any little bits of description, any adjectives, any similes, any extended noun phrases, anything like that that you want to include, make a little note. You might use them, you might not, you might adapt them, but it would be useful to have them. Okay, let's listen now. The dragon, through his serpent scales, had felt the loss of the treasure, and hearing the footfall of the intruder, opened one angry eye and watched him go. After 300 years, he was slow to wake. This worm of wickedness now slithered out of his hole, following where the fleeing slave had gone. Rage roaring, he circled the mound looking for the man's footprints, but found none out there in the wilderness. Yet he knew his treasure house had been breached, knew the golden cup had been stolen from him, and was burning with fire fury at the offence. He would have his sweet revenge, that was sure. He longed now for the flames of war, for the fire of battle again after so many years asleep. He could hardly wait. That night, this death-dealing dragon came flying over the moors. Armed with fire he came, spewing out his flames wherever he went. He did not mind whose dwelling it was he left burning brightly behind him. In his eyes, all were guilty of the crime. If he had his way, he would not have left a single man alive. Over all the Yertish land, the blazing fires rose skyward. A scourge of fire-spitting destruction he wrought in that one night, pouring out his venomous fire, burning everywhere and everyone with his flame-throwing poisonous breath. Before morning, light came to the sky. With the country and its people left so cruelly ravaged, the serpent flew back to his hidden hoard deep inside his secret mound. Here he believed he would be quite safe, but he was mistaken, as you shall hear. Beowulf had heard by now of the horror visited on his countrymen that night by this death dragon. His own mead hall, most magnificent of all buildings in the land, the very heart of the kingdom, had been consumed by the serpent's fire. Sorrow overcame him when he saw the ashes smouldering. Grief gripped and guilt-ridden, that good king imagined he must have brought this on himself, that he had somehow angered his eternal God. When he saw how that devil's dragon had visited fire and fury on all the land by the sea, where his people had lived out their lives in peace, secure, they thought, in the safety of their homes, then anger swelled inside him, and overcame his grief and his guilt. Now the old king roused himself to action and swore to punish this evil death messenger. Old he may have been, but Beowulf was formidable still in strength and will. At once he gave orders that a huge shield should be made, all in iron. He knew wood would be little use against the searing heat of the serpent's fire. Only with such a shield would he be able to come close enough to the horde-squatting dragon to put an end to this murderer's miserable life. But Beowulf, this mighty warrior of old, would not go up against this death dragon with his army of warriors. He was a hero who had never known fear. He scorned the dragon's strength and his fighting prowess too. Beowulf had survived battles in plenty and emerged victorious in many other clashes since that time when he had destroyed the monster Grendel and his sea hag mother all those years before in the land of Hrothgar. He was not afraid again to do battle in defence of his people, this noble hero. So he took only 11 warrior companions with him to seek out this fiery ravager of the night. They were all he would need. he thought. But one more came with them too. The slave who had stumbled by chance into the hidden mound and woken the horde-watching dragon from his centuries of sleep. He had been discovered, this guilty slave, being found clutching the precious golden goblet. So the cause of the serpent's woeful attack had been discovered, and the slave was brought along, this cursed coward, to show them the way to the mound, for he alone knew the inside of the dragon's earth hall, the cavernous lair heaped high with treasure, where the dreaded dragon lay. Beowulf knew how formidable this underground guardian was, how fierce and fiery a foe he would be, and he was not wrong. Here Beowulf spoke to his trusted hearth companions. He meant with his words to lift their hearts, to exhort and encourage them, to banish their fear. There was no fear in the great hero, but the truth was that his own spirit was gloomy and heavy with premonition, as if he already knew that this was the place and the time of his last fight, that this dragon would be the end of him, his body and soul torn apart at last in the struggle that lay ahead. Strongly he spoke, though, banishing all those dark thoughts from his mind. Cherished comrades in arms, I have survived many struggles in my life, and I do not forget any of them, nor the brave war companions who died at my side. I have always had good fortune in these battles, wielding my bright hard-edged sword again and again in service of Hygelac my king in my early days, and as king myself now, these long years since. Every battle I ventured I won, by God's good grace, and I shall win again today, old as I am. I am the stern guardian of my people, and I must destroy this death dragon before it destroys us. I would go up against him barehanded and bareheaded, as once I grappled with that monster Grendel, but I must somehow defend myself against the fire of this flame spitter. So I will carry this iron shield to fend off the flames, and wear my mail shirt and helmet to protect my flesh from his fire venom. I shall be strong in spirit, give all in this fight. I shall not run from this heathen horde guardian, however hot and fierce the flames. Wait here for me. This is my fight. 'Tis for me, your king, to match myself against this champion of evil. I will dare all bravely. Should I win, God willing, then the horde dragon will die his death and harm us no more, and we shall win all the gold he guards. Should I fail, then your king will not see this nightfall, nor any other tomorrow, nor share the cup of my mead with you ever again. If this is my end, then so be it. Strongly he spoke out, this champion of the Geats. Despite all his doubts, he was still confident in his prowess. Brave beside his shield he stood, in helmet and war shirt, ready now to meet the death dragon face to face. He would not shrink from the fight, this survivor of countless conflicts and battle clashes. Then, out of the mound came a sudden blast of flame. Waves of savage fire surged out of that deadly tunnel. So the dragon began the battle, breathing out his perilous fire. Without being burnt alive, there seemed no way in, no way past those terrible flames for Beowulf. In his anger now, the hero roared his defiance. Like a battle horn it sounded, echoing through the vaulted cavern. Deep inside, the hated dragon recognised the champion's voice challenge. Filled with fury, he stirred himself to violent action. Uncoiled now, the serpent roared out its thunderous response, a hissing gout of foul flame and billowing breath smoke. The ground shook. The rocks and the trees trembled as the death dragon emerged enraged from the mound, seeking out his foe. There stood Beowulf before him, bravest of warrior kings, his shield held before him, his trusted sword drawn. Each saw then the terrible power of the other, felt the same portent of impending doom, but neither would shirk the death encounter. Beowulf stood his ground as the all-enveloping flames rushed forwards toward him, curling over and around him, enveloping him entirely in smoke and fire. Bravely, he stood fast behind his great shield, knowing already that huge though it was too small to protect him. Undaunted, the hero swung up his huge ancestral sword, ancient sword of all the Yertish kings, and struck the dragon a savage, scything blow, cut through his foul flesh to the bare bone beneath, a death blow he meant it to be, hoped it would be. But this time his good old sword failed to bite deeply enough. Wounded now, the dragon came on in his agony, spat his hellish fire over the great-hearted king, forced him back with his spewing flames. Beowulf felt the skin-searing pain and knew then that this time there would be no easy victory, that he had met his match at last. Then, as the death dragon raged and roared, rearing up to attack, Beowulf again, those chosen few, those trusted comrades in arms who should have rushed to his side in his moments of need, turned away and ran for the safety of the woods, saving their shameful skins, leaving their king to face that flame-belching monster all alone. Only Beowulf, the youngest there, stood by his lord. He felt the bonds of kinship more keenly than the others. He knew his duty, knew where his place was. He would not desert the king who had bestowed on him and his family so much kindness. Land he held, and a wealthy house and gold too, all given to him and his forebears by this most generous of all kings. He would stay and fight at Beowulf's side. Angrily, he urged the others to do the same, shouting after them, "How can you leave him now, when he needs us most? Our dear Lord Beowulf! Did he not choose as himself to accompany him on this perilous adventure? Did we not all come here expecting a fight? Now, when we should be at his side, you run away like rabbits. As for me, I would far rather die here alongside him, feel with him the pain of death if I must, end my life fighting in the struggle sword in hand, rather than desert him and return home shamed forever." But his words fell on deaf ears. Fear filled, the cowards dropped their swords and ran for their lives. All courage withered suddenly and gone, all honour with it. Beowulf did not hesitate now, disdaining all fear, and this was to be his first battle. The young lion threw up his wooden shield and strode through the battle smoke to his lord's side. "Beloved and best Beowulf, I am here to help you. I shall defend you to the death, my king, as I have sworn to do." Just as he spoke, the death dragon attacked for a second time, seeking out both hated foemen with his blast of flame. In that billow of fire, the youngster's shield was at once burnt, reduced to cinders, and his mail shirt was melted away in the heat as if it had simply never been there. So the young kinsman leapt behind the old king's shield. New strength surged into Beowulf's heart as he saw now that he was not alone in his fight any more. He sprang up once again from behind his shield and struck at the fire-snorting snake with all his might. But his iron blade snapped. That ancient sword of sternest steel, which had never before failed him in battle, failed him now, and left him at the mercy of the pitiless monster who came upon him now for the third time. Now was the demon dragon's chance, and he took it. Seething with war hatred, he opened his bitter jaws and seized the champion by the neck. The serpent's fangs bit deep into the flesh, and Beowulf's life blood poured from him. Beowulf, that young hero, was as good as his word. His courage did not fail him now. He summoned all his strength and sprang forward into the dragon's fire to defend his lord. Hands and head were burned as he came through it, but he was not to be put off, this brave warrior. He would do his duty. Beowulf did not aim for the scaly head of the beast, but instead went for the soft throat, stabbing deep into it with his sword, a thrust so powerful that the dragon was forced to loosen his grip on Beowulf, so stunning that the fiery flow was suddenly stemmed and staunched forever. Coming again to his senses, the great king seized his moment, whipped out his battle-sharp dagger and drove it to the hilt into the dragon's body. So together, the two heroes downed the dragon. They did not stop stabbing him till an end was made of him. Till his last gasp of life, the last death breath was over, and the monster was still. But for Beowulf, This was to be his last victory of so many, and he knew it already. The poison in his wounds was beginning to burn and swell inside him. He sat down heavily on a ledge of rock, knowing the shadow of his own death was upon him, feeling the fatal pain of it blowing in his chest. Beowulf, ever attentive to his lord and friend, ever loyal, bathed his blooded king, unfastened his helmet, did all he could to staunch the bleeding, to relieve this pain. But death he could not staunch. No one can. The fearless leader knew well now that this was the end of his time, of all his earthly happiness. He had only one wish to fulfil before his life left him. He called Beowulf closer, for his speech was thin now, his breathing short. "Go now, dear friend," he said. "Go into the mound and find this serpent's treasure hoard. I want to see it with my own eyes before I die. Those ancient jewels, your golden inheritance, just once I want to see it." Beowulf did not hesitate to obey his lord. Blooded and burnt as he was, he ran past the dead hoard guardian and into the barrow, deep into that house of treasures, into the winged serpent's den of darkness. Many and magnificent were the marvels he found there, old tarnished relics of a vanished ancient race of warriors, piles of drinking cups and heaps of helmets and twisted torques, all of the most precious gold. No wonder this death dragon had fought so hard to keep it. And high above the hoard there hung the battle standard of the tribe, woven entirely in glowing gold that shone even in the gloom of the place, brightly enough even to light up the treasure below. Swiftly, for he knew there was no time to waste, Beowulf gathered all he could carry out, golden cups and flagons, and that ancient battle standard too. Even burdened with his load of treasures, Beowulf ran all the way back out of the tunnel. With every eager step he worried that his lord might already have died out there while he was gone. And when the brave thane at last saw his leader, he did seem almost dead, barely breathing still, his eyes closed. Beowulf sprinkled his face with cooling water, begging him to wake up and live. Deep in his death sleep, the battle king heard Beowulf's voice calling him back, opened his eyes, and saw the gold honest Beowulf had brought to show him. He thanked the youngster for all he had done for him. He was thoughtful, even in death, this hero, and then, breathless, spoke these last few words. "I have defended my kingdom these 50 years as best I could, served my people as wisely as I could. For that I thank my God, the King of all glory. And to him also I give thanks for these treasures that I see before my dying eyes, for the opportunity to acquire them for my people on my death day, to sustain them in all their needs in the future when I am gone. Beowulf, my beloved friend, I fear I can stay no longer. Tell them, and this is the last command of their king, to build me a tomb high on the cliff overlooking Grosness. Let it stand always as a towering reminder of me to my people, so that masted ships dipping through the sea mists may see it and remember it always. Let the place be known forever as Beowulf's Barrow." Right, let's look at those first stanzas from yesterday. So we wrote, you should have written the first 4 lines of your poem. Have a think again about the rhyme scheme, about the rhythm scheme, because we had that A, B, rhyme. So the first and third lines should rhyme, and the second and the fourth lines should rhyme. And when we read it out loud, we should be able to get close to, doesn't have to be exactly right, but close to that rhythm that kind of went. It won't fit exactly. Mine don't fit exactly. But if it's close, then in the way that you perform the poem, you can make up for that. So today we're going to begin to plan the whole poem. So what we need to do is summarise what happened in that third part of Beowulf. Can we summarise the story we listened to last week in 5 steps? Pause the video and have a think, and I'll show you what I came up with. So, number 1. A slave steals a cup and awakes the dragon. Number 2. The dragon burns villages throughout the land and Beowulf hears about it. Number 3. Beowulf goes with his warriors to fight the dragon. Number 4. Everyone except Beowulf abandons Beowulf, but they defeat the dragon together. I looked up how to pronounce Beowulf because I said Wiglaf for years, and apparently it's Beowulf. Number 5. Beowulf dies of his wounds and is buried in a barrow by the sea. And in case anyone was unsure, this is kind of the thing we're looking at. This is actually on Anglesey, and it's from the Neolithic. But this is the sort of thing we're talking about, kind of a mound with a chamber inside where they laid Beowulf's ashes. Right, there were a lot of descriptive phrases in the long reading that we heard today. On the next slide, there are some phrases that I heard and made a note of. If you like them, and you haven't made a note of them already, make a note of them in your books now. You might want to pause the next slide and have a look. I will read through them actually as well. So I heard, perilous fire, his trusted sword drawn, nameless slave. That rhymes with cave, it might be useful. Fire fury, heaps of helmets, treasure hoard of talismans, dreaded dragon, death dragon, peace offering, hoard squatting worm of something or other, wickedness, gruesome grip, anger swelled, cringing cowards, waves of savage fire, fire snorting flame, in his anger, through his fire breath, spewed fire, guilt ridden, death blow, sorrow overcame him, flame belching, crying out to the earth itself, champion of evil, death encounter, golden goblet, glowing gold, den of deep darkness, thunderous response, seized with sudden terror. So pause this slide if you want to make a note of some of those. So let's have a look at transforming our first idea into 4 lines. Remember, they don't have to rhyme at first. The way we're going to do this is we're going to write the ideas and then turn them into poetry. So we're going to look at turning this sort of basic idea into a rhyming poem. You're not going to do that till tomorrow, but I thought I'd show you how I do it with this. So my first idea, a slave stole a cup, it woke up the dragon was really angry, the slave didn't mean it. So it doesn't follow our rhyming pattern that we're looking for, and it doesn't follow the rhythm. But for today, that's the kind of thing I want you to do. What we're going to do tomorrow is think about turning that into a rhyming poem using our pattern. So, a slave stole a cup. Well, our rhythm's longer than that. Da, 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 da. So I'm going to maybe go, a slave he stole a golden cup. That fits. It woke up the dragon. Da, 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 da. It woke up the... No. So I need to change that a bit. The dragon could not find. It's a bit weird that I'm trying to say that the dragon couldn't find the cup, but it fits the rhythm. Da, 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 da. So the dragon was really angry. I'm going to change that to the ferocious beast he did wake up, because that gives me a rhyme for cup, and it also fits my rhythm. I've had to, again, mangle that sentence. You wouldn't say that in real life. You know, in real life, you would say, the ferocious beast woke up. But in poetry, we sometimes use this weird, he did wake up voice, basically to get some extra syllables in, I think. And then finally, the slave didn't mean it. Needs to rhyme with find, with revenge on his poisoned mind. So that line looks quite long, but if you say it right, it can fit the rhythm. So when you're writing these poems, especially tomorrow when we're trying to get these rhythms and rhymes, really say them out loud to yourself. Try and get that rhythm in there as well as the rhymes. So what I want you to do now is write your first 2 story points as 4-line stanzas. Remember, they don't have to rhyme yet. So have a look at the first couple of points that you want to write about and turn them into 4-line stanzas. When you've done that, if you've not got them already, just go back in the video a little bit and make a note of those 5 story points, because that's what you're going to be using to write your poem. You may have more than 1 stanza for each point. It'd be nice to have more than 5 stanzas in the whole poem, but we need to know what we're writing about. Okay, see you tomorrow.